And I'll just introduce our speaker for today, Shanteka Sigers. I'll tell you a little about her. She's an ECD at Sanders Wingo, which is in Austin, Texas, and they also have another location in Shanteka, where's the other one? El Paso. Thank you. Okay, she does copywriting, creative department leadership, global brand experience. She's worked on AT&T. She's worked on McDonald's. She's worked on Toyota and other big brands, P&G. So basically, she designs battle plans, brand messaging, and business solutions with a team of other collaborative folks. Personal note, I've known Shanteka in the agency since 2005, so 13 years. I've known her since my start of the agency world in Chicago, and she's one of the most memorable, smartest women I've known with a huge heart. So please give a warm welcome to Shanteka Sigers.
Okay, there we go. Hi, I'm really happy to be here. I never went to ad school. I have a, I guess, comparatively useless degree from Northwestern. So this is all really new and interesting to me. So thanks for having me. And I don't think Stacy remembers me that well, those nice things she said. Girl, I'm gonna remind you of some stuff a little later. So I thought a lot about what I was going to talk to you about today, because you guys get lots of fancy people and stuff that come and talk about very fancy things. And I decided that I was going to talk to you about, first of all, my love for really tacky presentation graphics and what I really like about advertising. I thought that I liked making ads, and I do like making ads, but I found that over the years what thrills me the most is fixing stuff. I like fixing stuff, and I like solving problems. I do it all the time. So I'm going to talk to you about my life as a, ooh, got fancy, look at me. My life as a problem solver, solutions for profit, solutions for fun, and a challenge to a problem I think Miami Ad School could help solve. So it's what, a little bit for you, a little bit for the Miami Ad School gods here. My presentation is slow, or I'm bad at pushing buttons. My life as a problem solver. So when I do those things on Twitter, where they ask you, what 3 people are you? I'm Clair Huxtable, I'm Don Draper, and I'm also Hannibal from the A-Team, because I love it when a plan comes together. Seriously, that's my thing. I sold my first ad in 5th grade. No, true story. I was in Birmingham, Alabama, and there was a dry cleaner, and it was Lawson's Dry Cleaner, and every day I would pass them, and one day, I don't know what it was that made me do it, but I drew a poster of Smurfette, I guess like low to the ground and in a dress, I don't know, but I drew this poster of Smurfette, and I also did not know that I'm a copywriter, I'm not an art director, but I didn't know that yet. But I made him a poster, and I said, you know, you can tell people to drop off their kids and drop off their clothes or something like that. And I walked in, and I asked to speak to the manager, and they bought the poster for $5, which I promptly blew on candy. But I didn't know that was a job. It seemed really stupid to me, but it worked. I named my middle school's literary journal. It's still named Bates Creates, and that was a long, long, long time ago. So there was a problem on the middle school playground, like the older kids would run over the younger kids, and so I wanted to stop that problem. So I made a thing called Adopt a Kid. And so I figured if the older kids kind of knew the younger kids at least, or they were kind of friends, or they had something in common, maybe they'd stop trampling them on the playground. And so I had to make these sheets and applications because I'm a nerd, and that I had to get their interests and match them up with older kids' interests, and then I compare them together on the playground. And I really think it was mostly an elaborate plan to use that mimeograph machine in the teacher's lounge, but it worked, and it helped fewer tramplings happen. that's me. I also wrote stories about a fictional rock band. So I was kind of doing content before people knew what content was. And I drew and wrote stories about this band. And the popular girls would write to these characters, and I would write back as the characters. Now, mind you, these are people who would not talk to me in the room because I was not popular, but they sure would write to my characters. My mistake was not charging those heifers. I was a DJ at Northwestern, and I named it, the show was called like the All Rap Party or something like that, and I renamed it 6 Feet Under. And I remember getting my alumni magazine like 10 or so years later, and I was like, holy cow, they still named it. The show is still named 6 Feet Under. So I was very pleased with myself, and then they renamed it, and then I stopped donating. I'm kidding, I donate. So then eventually I made my way into advertising, and I do important things like push the head of project management around on an AV cart during client meetings. Go figure. But ultimately, the best part about advertising is people pay me money to do what I do anyway. I kind of always do this stuff. I've worked with lots and lots of brands, large and small, over the years. Here's a sizzle reel.
Dunk on my team like that. Oh, yes, he did.
You do know the one thing better than fly. Fly-er.
Every time I see that Minotaur, I start laughing because that spot we had to rush to get it on the air, and I was extremely pregnant at the time, and I couldn't go down to the set, and I remember we had a giant in the spot, but the giant didn't look like a giant because they weren't shooting him from low enough. But I couldn't go I couldn't go to the set and really yell. I had to get on a microphone and then yell, and then another pregnant creative director is in the van with me, and we're both like just these two little round people just yelling. And but the giant looked like a giant in the end, and the Minotaur looked like a Minotaur, and we made it to the World Series premiere. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a couple of my favorite solutions for profit, the ones I do at work. And I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite, we still participate, but a client called E4 Youth. And E4 Youth is the challenge for them. The founder came up with this, this venture. Carl Settles goes to high schools, and he finds the kids that are a little off-center, the ones that draw in the notebooks. They may or may not be doing so well in school. They're kind of arty. And he goes to the teachers, and he says, where are they? I have something for them to do. And these kids come into the program, and what Carl does is he basically shows those kids us. And he says, this could be your future. Because how many people have had somebody at some point tell them that this is not something they can do, that art isn't something that you can do? Like, I think everybody who's in the creative industry, at some point, their parents or someone else is kind of like, that's not exactly a real job. Or when you first got into it, they said, well, I'm worried that you're going to be a starving artist. So what Carl does is say, no, you don't have to go that other way. There's a place for you. And the trick was explaining that in a really clear way. So sometimes the solution, I am a copywriter, and the solution is to articulate something well. So every bit, I think this is one of the, it's not snappy, but it's very specific. E4 Youth, they help arty kids find their way to careers in commercial creative arts. So every word was chosen specifically. Arty kids, which encompasses all of us pretty much. And finding your way was important because kids get scared because there's no specific path to where we are. A lot of them don't know about Miami Ad School, and it scares people when there is no specific path to success. If you want to be a teacher, there's a path to it. If you want to be a doctor, there's a specific path to it. If you want to be a lawyer, there's a specific path to it, and you'll arrive. There's kind of sort of a path now, but not that everybody knows. So it's all about finding the way to a career. In other words, you won't starve to death in commercial creative arts. Like, it pays real American dollars. So that was a very specific thing, including the tag, which is claim our own. Because a lot of people up until that point, E4 was talking about, get to the new generation of creators. And it's kind of like, wait a minute. I just got here myself. How about y'all just hold on a second and let me, and it's that people are selfish or mean, it's just that a lot of them did just get to the industry, and it's kind of, y'all already talking about the next people to take our jobs. So could we hold on a second? So I kind of was switching them into more of a claim our own, as in, you creative person, think of who you were and how somebody stood in and helped you get here. Somebody told you about this job. Somebody said that you could do it. Somebody believed that you would not die alone with no money in a hovel. Somebody had to encourage you to get here. So the headlines were very fun, but that was a lot of specific crafting. Somewhere a teenager with 5 billion retweets is being persuaded to become a lawyer. Austin won't be so weird if all our kids become accountants. And my personal favorite, which if you don't know what a human centipede is, don't look it up. Don't look it up. Ask somebody, don't look it up. So that was me living my personal dream of fitting human centipede into a headline. Okay. Did I watch it? No, I think you only need to watch one of the human centipede before you stop, you satisfied. You get, I mean, where are you going to go from that? Millipedes? Nobody needs that. So, yeah, seriously, don't look that up. The district attorney, we have the district attorney in El Paso, and he is such a wonderful, wonderful client. He is not only concerned with prosecuting the bad guys, he's very much so concerned with victims' rights, what happens before crime prevention, as well as what happens to you after something happens, a crime is committed. And he's very forward thinking. His challenge to us years ago was how to get domestic violence prevention resources to domestic violence victims, which is tricky because we found that when women need this information, so he wanted us to make a brochure that included everything from what is domestic violence, some women don't understand that's the situation that they're even in, all the way to what to do when you've decided it's time to go. And you put that in a brochure. The challenge with putting it in a brochure is that the abuser is really controlling. That's an important part of abuse, is being able to control all the information, who they talk to, what they look at on the internet. And you can't just be sitting at the breakfast table with a brochure about domestic violence prevention. So that was our assignment. So we were trying to figure out what to do. Another issue is that we know that behavioral, it is more likely, a lot of times people have a misconception that when the police are called, then that's the end of it. Like, she finally got herself out of that, and they think it's over. It is not. It takes as much time as the individual needs to get out of the situation. And that means that they need to spend time with this information. They don't just make the snap decision, the police are here and it's done. They need time to digest it and read it and go over it at their own pace. And that's something they just don't have. So what was our solution? We decided to hide it in plain sight. There is something about, you had to go past a purse, but there's something about the makeup bag that the macho man just won't go after. And so we hid it inside of a lipstick case. It's nondescript. It's hidden inside plenty of information. about emergency contacts, what to do when you're ready to leave. You can contact the district attorney's office. Here are some tips on how to stay safe, and also what is it? It's power and control. So that we gave them plenty of time to digest it, and when they were ready, they could make a move. Now, usually domestic violence cases usually end in dismissals. When women go to the officers, they may or may not go all the way through. It is not true in El Paso. We have more prosecutions than dismissals. So I do, and this is one of the most satisfying pieces of work the agency has done. We do have to find new hiding places, though. So agency problems, sometimes as ECD, I like to experiment on us. You have no idea, my poor creative department, I always have like random experiments running. This one was late timesheets, which, God, I hate timesheets. And I'm sorry, Matthew, I'll do my timesheets as soon as I get back. The idea was people get mad at the timesheet program. It's the timesheet program, we hate the program, and so, but I thought about it, and our agency is so nice. These people are nice. I'm the meanest person at the agency. And we have a lot of organic accountability to each other. Like, as in a copywriter and an art director, they are really, like, there's a lot of trust in there. So if you're a copywriter and you tell an art director, yeah, I'm gonna get you that script in about an hour, and then 2 days later, you have not given the art director the script, that's crazy talk. Like, nobody does that. We always, and if you're going to be late, you go to them, you're sorry, you're like, okay, got it, I'm going to get it to you. But we don't do that to accounting. We just don't even care. Like, we tell them we're going to do, yeah, I'm going to do my timesheets. And then we do not do those timesheets for like weeks. And I was like, oh my God, we're so mean. Why are we so mean to Lacey? And Lacey, conversely, by the way, is like, Lacey's now, but Lacey was the nicest person in the agency. And I was like, we don't even know what happens when Lacey doesn't do what she's supposed to do. She can't fill out the forms. She can't do all the stuff she's supposed to do. And so I thought maybe if I could connect the fact that you were not being very nice to your coworkers, these nice people would start doing their timesheets a little bit more in a more timely fashion. So that came birth to Don't Be Shitty to Lacey. That was a working title, and we just never changed it. And the idea was we created a Workamajig, which is a timesheet program, an extension to it, that sucked all the data out and basically played it on screens in both our offices. And it was just a sequence of who was late, who was later, and who was the latest person. So it was late, and then it got later, and then it got the latest people, and then it went to individual shamings. So, sorry to pick on Jessica, but Jessica was very good with her timesheets. But and once if you did all the timesheets, then we would reward you by showing pictures of your pets. So I think that pet's turtle's name is Neptune. So that was what we did, and the creators were like, "What is this mess?" And immediately started tacking things to the screens, including the Game of Thrones shame, because we were publicly shaming them. This is not exactly a solution. I am a planner's best friend / nightmare because I read Truth, Lies, and Advertising, and I worked on the Truth account in the first iteration, and I saw the power of planning. So I've read a book and I've seen Truth, and so yeah, I'm pretty much like a broke planner. And so I'm lots of fun. I'm like, that's not what it said on page 338. So they love me in the planning department. But I wanted to make it up to them by talking about one of the briefs that led to some really great problem solving, and that was for an account, the Trail Foundation. So the Trail Foundation needed to get walkers, runners, dog people, and bikers to obey the rules on the trail. First of all, they ain't got no signs, so didn't nobody know there were rules on the trail. That's number one. And number two, we didn't know how going to receive it, because, you know, if you've been doing things one way the whole time, somebody telling you to put your dang dog on a leash and please not make that leash 50 feet long, and telling bikers to slow down on the trail can be dodgy. So the planners called us in, and I was kind of like, okay, it was going to be a regular briefing. And then they started talking about their process. They took us down to the trail, and then they started really talking about what they had done. And I was so fascinated. So first they just made signs. I was like, well, obviously you make signs. So they had already made the signs. They were like, we made these signs. I was like, okay. And they said, and we were testing tonality. Should we be authoritative like a stop sign, or should we be cute and cheeky with rhymey little stuff? And I was like, I don't know, should you? And they were like, okay, so we tested tones. And then they put GoPros in the signs to record people's response, and they asked them to gesture if they read or agree with this rule. I was like, what? And then what happened? So they took, that's one of the signs, so that's a different tone, be aware, pass with care, if you dare. And I was like, what? And then what happened? They said, we then put the rules on the back of shirts. That's one of them, the red hair. And they ran and modeled the behavior. So they were running and calling out on your left so that people would know they were about to pass. And they've got GoPros strapped so they could see what the responses were to these people. And I was like, what? And then what happened? This is Amy. She's one of the planners.
One of the rules on the trail is that cyclists should maintain a 10 mile per hour or less speed. We had a hypothesis that trail users who are on bicycles don't really know what 10 miles per hour feels like, so we decided to show them. We took out speed signs that show how fast you're going in real time, and we learned that instead of slowing bicycles down, the cyclists took it as a challenge to see how fast they could go.
I was so fascinated by that. So they did so much that inspired us. And the truth is, it's one of the best problem-solving briefings I've ever been in, because the planners had already done the work and they had already basically solved a lot of that. I was fascinated by that. And this was the alternate title for this presentation: doing the absolute most, annoying civilians by being your ad self in the regular world, which is what I do really well. Because remember, I can't stop the problem solving issue, so I'm hell in the PTA. So I'm an ECD, and I got that title maybe 8 years ago. And then I got another title, which is also very important and requires my attention, because that guy showed up. And being a creative director and being a girl and being a mom is really weird, because you don't know what kind of person you're gonna be, or does this change you, or how does this make you function, or to be quite blunt, in advertising, will that make you lose your edge or not be as creative as you once were? And for me, he ended up being my motivation, because being the parent of a small black child in America means problem solving all the time. So we did pretty good. So I'm a child of hip hop, and when I had my son, I could not find things that I liked for his room. And did anybody notice that deaf is in the middle of the doggone alphabet? Are you kidding me? So that was my son's one of his alphabet posters, and I made them. I hooked up with he's a rock poster god. His name is Rob Story. If you look up the Rob Story, he is dope, and he works for me. And he recently returned to the agency, which I'm very excited about. And he designed these, and we screen printed them, and I have them, and I generally share them with other parents. Once again, I'm still not charging people for this stuff. I don't learn. This is his other ABC poster. I wanted some plushies, and I did not want pretend rap plushies, but I never got the rights for Run DMC, so don't tell anybody you saw this, but I make him, if I can't find it, I basically learn to just make it. Also, Halloween is the high holy holiday for creative parents, okay? So his costume is Venom, which is evil Spider-Man, and my costume is Innocent Victim. And then he decided, and your kids just want dry costumes, like you can't do concept costumes with them after a while, and then they want to be Spider-Man or the Hulk or whatever, and so then you have to figure out what to do. So one year it was Pokemon. He wanted to be Pokemon, so I was an in-app purchase. What I did not understand is that if you have on a little sandwich board with that there, that kids will come and punch you in the buy button. So I spent Halloween getting punched in the gut by a bunch of kids. My old partner's daughter was not Dora, she was Dora's backpack, which I still freaking love. So I started a blog when he was born because I was paranoid I was going to get hit by a bus, and I wasn't going to tell him every single thing I needed him to know. So you do estate planning so that your kids will get your money, and I was like, oh my God, he needs my advice. And so I blogged lots of advice because he was too small to understand anything at the time. Now I nag him in person. And that blog won an award from the Austin Chronicle for best blog that year. Also, there's not enough books, children's books with black protagonists in them. We don't see ourselves as the key person in our lives, and other children don't learn to have empathy with black children because that's your first learnings of empathy and trying on new roles is when you're a kid is to read a book about someone and then you are that person. And so I wanted him to see himself as the lead in his life, but also I wanted him to know that creative ideas have value. I didn't want Carl Settles from E4 Youth to have to come get my kid. So he kind of came up with a story idea and acted as creative director, and I kind of wrote the story and tested it with him, and I hired an illustrator, and we wrote Kenny Ray and then 100 Tiny Archers. And so he gets such a kick out of having his book in the library. I'm working on a interactive storybook called Eaten by a Bear. So we're going to see if we can see what we can do on the iPad this time. So parenting in general is advertising and behavioral science and teaching Amston, that's my kid, his brand story, which I do all the time. And also when I say I do the most, I do the most. My kid has a logo. He also has brand pillars, which was kind of, I framed my parenting. It has more to do with me than it has to do with him. I frame my parenting so I don't forget things. And because this is what I do, it helps me solve problems. So the brand pillars are no matter what he wants to do or what he wants to be, when he's 25, how do I want to describe him and what things will serve him well no matter what he's doing. So that's kind of where we went with that. But how do you teach them? How do you teach him to remember these things? Repetition, hello, you just make him believe his own propaganda.
Today is the most important day of my life, and I'm a guest, and I'm a citizen of this family, and I work for the greater good of this family. Courage is the power to let go of the familiar. I am courageous. Tenacity is the power to never give up. I am today to swashbuckle, to live a daring and adventurous life. I swashbuckle.
Are you woke?
Yeah.
We have added several more verses since then, and every morning on the way to school, he repeats it because I know that repetition is the key to life, a la Whipple. So, we are an entire industry of creative problem solvers, right? I'm sure you guys do a lot of the same stuff in your own lives, and a lot of the solutions you admire are just that, kind of just, it's not necessarily how it's done, it's that it was such a great solution to a problem. So we're an entire industry of creative problem solvers, and that is how I know that we are not caring about diversity. We don't really care, because if we really wanted to fix it, we just fixed it. It's what we do. Our agency's solution is simple, but I cannot say that it's a part of really any move to be diverse at all. We just kind of are who we are. We just went to see Black Panther. I really should have named this, should have, sometimes I call us, that's right, Sanders Wakanda. So that's what one of our agency meetings, these are my creatives. It's not the result of a strategy. It's just really ultimately because I just kind of don't know any other way to be. We also don't have a problem with female creative leadership. The agency really kind of never has. Since 1958, there have been a surprising number of women in creative leadership. That's Lilia Alvarez. She's the creative director. I just promoted her to run El Paso. So we kind of don't have a problem with that. And it's not because of an effort. It's just because it's the only way I know how to build a department. It's what I grew up with. I started at Burrell well, not started quite, but I was at Burrell in Chicago, and I was hired by a female ECD who was the successor to another female ECD. There were women galore in that dang on creative department. I didn't even know it was a problem until after I left. Or probably not, actually, I didn't know till probably the 3% conference how bad it was for women, because I grew up around a bunch of women, creative directors. I think that having a black girl ECD does help, and one who grew up the way that I did, it does help the situation, but not everybody has a me, and that's where you come in. So I wrote this article on LinkedIn a while ago that was called HBCU Ad School. And it proposed that a holding company start an ad school on the campus of a historically black college or university. So go to Howard and make an ad school. I figured you could get the best of the talent. So basically, if Wakanda will not come to you, go to Wakanda. So that is how you do it. So don't we talk about media and placement and knowing where the consumer is? I think I know where they at. They're on these college campuses, so go there. So I wrote that, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to challenge. I don't even know how it works. I don't understand how educational institutions and accreditation and all that stuff, but I think you should have Miami Ad School Wakanda. Go partner with Howard or Spelman or anyone, Houston Tillotson in Austin, and I would be happy to help get that off the ground with my limited Northwestern knowledge of ad schools. But I think that's going to be a really great way to give the industry a shot in the arm. So that's my challenge to the higher gods of Miami Ad School, and my challenge to you guys too. So get with the HBCU and make history, y'all. Thanks.
Okay, so I have a question about, I'm guessing the future of advertising. I think oftentimes when we have people come in, we ask, where is advertising going? But I have a question is, where's the agency going? As I know that there are a lot of companies that are now doing in-house. I know Procter & Gamble cut back $400 million to advertise, to the advertising budget or the agency budget. So as an ECD, I'm curious, where do you see, because hopefully I think a lot of us are looking to go into agencies, like should we be looking for a different route, or are agencies still the thing that we should invest in our futures, in our careers?
Well, ask a complex question, why don't you? Here's the thing. The answer is yes. Look elsewhere from agencies. Don't look only at agencies, because why would you? If the goal is to solve problems and the goal is to be creative, why would you only look at what we do not have? That's what agencies are having trouble adjusting to. We were the rock stars of the business world. We didn't have to show up on time. We dressed crazy and do what we want to do. And we were fun. We used to entertain the clients and stuff. And we don't have the lock on being that cool no more. Like tech are the cool people. So agencies are going to have to adjust to this new reality. And I think that agencies will still be there. I think that our roles will change in lots of ways, but I do think why would anybody limit themselves to one place? There's so many other places, even like there's tech, and even going client side now, people are pulling creative into in-house to deliver on like consulting agencies. Like a girl I wanted to hire, I wasn't ready to hire her, and then I heard she went to Deloitte, like to consult, or Price Waterhouse, and I was like, Price Waterhouse, oh my God. So when I was ready to hire her, I went back to get her, because I thought I was gonna rescue her from Price Waterhouse. She was like, no, thank you. I was like, what? I'm sorry, I'm trying to help you, girl. But I think that you have to stay flexible. I'd be irresponsible to say, oh, no, you got to hold out for agencies. You go where they let you be you and where you can do your thing, ultimately. And if an agencies are still wonderful places, but they're not the only place. And I think that's healthy.
Who were your role models growing up?
I would say my mom. My mom cracks me up. My mother was 15 and my dad was 19 when I was born. And over the years, that woman is like, I have a section in here that I did not show you that is about how she is the best behavioral modification specialist that I know. And an amazing creative problem solver. Like, she was very young but had an instinct that just has not been matched. I try to live up to her. She, for example, went into a school. Sometimes I wonder if I should tell these things. So the middle schools that in Detroit, the few good ones said that there was no space. Nobody had any space. It was waiting list, wait list. So my mother makes an appointment at Alonzo Bates Academy for the gifted and talented, and the principal says, I'm so sorry, baby. There aren't any more spaces. Like, I got an auditorium full of folks crying and stuff. I'm so sorry. We got a lot of gifted kids that have tested in. And my mother said, oh, I would not dream of trying to skip line or anything like that. I just wanted to show you all Sean's, here's a portfolio of her work, here's her MCAT score, or her California Achievement Test scores, here's her MEET test scores, here's some pictures she drew, here's some testing that they did on her, and you know we're a family of educators, and so they've evaluated her IQ, and here's the readout. So I just wanted to know, what school should I take her to? I got into every school that I could not get into, okay? The woman is insane. Like, I remember going to meetings with teachers, and she went and got, like, it was the Board of Education, and they wanted me to take a class that she didn't want me to take. And we went in, they put us in the boardroom, and she said, hold on a second, watch this. And she got up from the side of the table and moved around to the front of the table. So they all filed in on the sides of the table, and she ran that meeting, okay? And she got me what I wanted. So a lot of times, and remember, when I was 12, she was 27. She wasn't very much older than me. So I always looked at, that's one of the, she said when I was born, she was worried that she had ruined my life and her life. So I look at all the things she did over the years, and I graduated in 1994. I think. She graduated from Northwestern 10 years after me. So that was always, my mom is always the person I look to and go, if she could do this at this age with a doggone baby or a teenager, then I can get my stuff together. So it's not, she's a creative problem solver, but she is just determination at it. She's gritty, okay?
You said you loved planning and you were a broke planner. Is there any advice that you can give to us? There's about 7 of us in the room that are just finishing up account planning boot camp.
Oh my gosh. I have a copy. If you email me, I will send you a copy of the best brief in the world. And you know it's the best brief in the world because it's in a yellow folder that I wrote the best brief in the world on. And it's for, it was the original brief for the American Legacy Foundation. And the reason it's really good, and I don't have the materials to go with it, because that was when I figured out what planning was supposed to do. Like, for a while, people were just turning research departments into planning. And it wasn't quite right, because you kind of have to be that research person, but you also kind of need to be a copywriter. And then you got to take all that stuff and make 1 and 1 make 3, but then I need to see how you got there. And it has to inspire the creators. So it's this little mix. And I felt like one of the best things that I learned out of that was the way they presented the American Legacy Foundation. They convinced a bunch of politicians to media train children and let them basically troll large corporations with body bags and megaphones. They convinced politicians to let them do it. It was a thing of beauty, and that's when I figured out what planning was supposed to do. The other thing is that one of the best planners I've ever encountered was a lawyer. She could argue a case. And so she knew how to make it sound easy breezy, like do, just taking you through information, and then she's corralled you to a point. A lot of times people just give you a whole bunch of information, like it's just a block of information. Here are things we know. And then there's no, I don't understand how you arrived here at what we should be talking about or what the problem is, and I don't get it. And so then I'm disconnected because you just gave me some research. To me, a good brief, I say bad briefs are like blocks, and good briefs are like the triangle, inverted triangle. You're corralling me into this point, and I'm nodding along and going, yeah, that is a good, I didn't know that. You taught me something. Oh, that is so interesting. That is so, oh, true. Oh, no. And that's basically the look on the politician's face. Like, I've agreed with all these things. It was so interesting, and I agreed, and now I got to let them take body bags out. So that's kind of, and it helps when you think like a lawyer, to me. It's the closing arguments.
What was the biggest problem you solved in your life, the one you're most proud of?
Do you mean like professionally or? Oh. Such a hard question. I frequently feel pretty proud. I'm entertained with myself. But I think recent, I'll say that this is a recent thing. So we have, one of our clients is the school district. And the school district, public schools are not used to competition. They just aren't, because they're a school district. Why would they be? And here come the charter schools into the district, and they started getting all the students. Now, the reason this is important is because schools get paid by how many students they have. And also, if all the students leave the district, and then when people start, the population rises, then all of a sudden the schools are overcrowded. So, and that's bad. So the challenge, when we took this on, I'm a proponent of public schools, as from the previous story, changed my life. So I love this client and I want them to win. So we have to, in this district, we took on AISD, which is the Austin Independent School District. And so when they came to us, they had tried to do it themselves, and they had a marketing budget, and it didn't go the way that they wanted, so they realized they needed help. But they're a school district saying they want an ad agency. Why are you spending our money this way? Shouldn't you just be paying for this, that, and the other? And they faced a lot of backlash for it, and which is a lot of pressure, because you're going to see this work in the city where you are, and you don't want to let them down, basically. And we put together a program. First of all, we said you have to be a brand. We convinced them to be a brand and to think like a brand. And what do we have that the charter schools could never claim? We're Austin's home team, baby. People love Austin so much, they move there. Like, I think it's like 127 people per day. Don't move to Austin, please. It's really not made for that many people to be there. Seriously, don't come. But they come for South by and they never freaking go home. But Austin is very popular. It is a great city. And so people have been coming to this city, but they don't have kids yet. So what we did was we created a brand, and we just kind of latched on to Austin's popularity. It also is something nobody else could claim. And we started kind of putting up work that linked Austin, this is the home team kind of schools. And then we got in and went house by house. Everything that the charter schools were doing, even when it wasn't sexy, you guys, I was like, oh no, door hangers. I don't want to make door hangers. Okay, let's make these door hangers. We went and found where the media person, that same girl who was talking about the bikes and the speeding, she basically made a battle plan of exactly where the charters, that's where we're going. Whatever they're doing, we're going to do that too. And outdoor, we went and bought the stuff first. Okay, we put up banners right outside the charter schools. So it was a lot of fun, and it was very satisfying. And And people were still iffy, and they still get iffy about it. But I'm really proud of it, because with really simple tactics, first out of the gate, we saved them between $4 and $5 million. We slowed the bleeding to $4 or $5 million, and we're going to be on track to continue reversing the trend. So that's really important. It's my professional but it's also important to me given where I came from. And it's really awesome to hear the results, that it's working, that I didn't just ruin my son's education by wasting a whole bunch of their money on ads for the school district when he could have bought pencils, I guess.
So we were talking a lot about problems, so I want to get a little bit more emotional. So when you face a problem, what moves you to keep going forward? Like when things get hard, what moves you?
I would say two things. One, I grew up poor, and two, I support the people that work for me. So I grew up with not a lot of money, so things don't rattle me that rattle other people. I know what real problems are, so I kind of go, that's not a problem, we can fix that. So I'm always really, when things happen, I kind of go, is this a problem? I don't know, are people gonna die or not eat or not have things? Okay, well, we can make it past this problem. So being able to put things into perspective means that when things go south, I remain remarkably like, I think we can fix this. The other part is that I can't afford to fall out because my teams depend on me. They depend on me to help them figure it out. So even if I have to go somewhere into a room and go, what the fuck? I still have to figure it out and come back, because when you are the ECD, that's what your job is, to not have tantrums and or at least try your best. Please don't put up a mega mix of me having a tantrum, okay? I know, those are my creed. That's what they think is funny. Here's a mega mix of Sean having tantrums. But I do my best not to have a tantrum. And even if I do have a tantrum, then I immediately come back with, okay, now here's where we're gonna go. You just can't afford to not have the energy.
Thank you. And which advice in life could you give us, like, not only personally, but professionally? Especially that you're a problem solver and we are planners, so which advice is the most valuable you think we should follow?
I think that everybody has to be an account planner. I think so. I mean, I really do. I think you have to be, because even if somebody doesn't quite dig the way you executed something, and you still have to be good at execution, at this point, the fact that you can nail that problem and come up with an innovative solution, that is important. Like, that's what the job always is. It's always that. And so I feel like, and also sometimes you're gonna have to figure it out, because sometimes you don't have a good planner, or sometimes you don't have a planner at all, or you disagree with it. Everybody has to have the mind to have some planning skills. And I think that will serve you well. Even if I remember when I was working on my book, I think my cover letter frequently said, "Forgive me, Father, for my book is ugly," because I didn't have an art director partner. I didn't go to ad school, so I didn't have anybody. So a lot of times that I had the writing done and the writing was perfect, but I didn't know what to do that way. And I was hoping they would see, and when I see portfolios, sometimes I go, they're not quite there yet, but we can teach that. But I can't teach them to be smart and innovative and nail an innovative solution. So it helps. I think it helps for everybody to have a little bit of planner. That's what people say when they say that's freaking smart. That is some smart ass shit. Like, when we say that means you got us.
Hello. Thank you for coming out. I know you talked about you're a problem solver, but aside from that, what is your approach to, like, any brief or advertising? Like, what is your angle?
I have to get to sometimes we're a little unrealistic about what people will and will not do. Is this interesting to me, or is this interesting to ad people, or is it interesting to the people it's supposed to be interested in? It's interesting too. So I think when I also understand, I don't get briefs a lot. Not exactly, not in that way, because that's not what I do every single day. Like, somebody else is gonna get the brief probably before my creative directors are gonna be going through the briefs. So I don't have a recent approach to it, but I think I usually comb through and try to get to, as the person who is supposed to get this message, realistically, what are they gonna think about? How can I be of service? I think I think everybody has their own process, really, to how they get there, and it's always very random, and it never really helps when you ask that, because you're like, what is that? I don't know. Like, it's hard to say, to answer that properly, but I think I always try to go, okay, realistically, can I make something that would make someone change their behavior in some way, and how would I do that?
Shanteka, thank you so much.